Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Today we're up to Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph, and we start from the very first word on Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph. It's a Mishnah. Look at the Mishnah. Hanachrim Nanjus Oivdim Esarim Sagvois. They serve mountains and lower mountains. Hem Mutorin. They are mutar bana. Usually, if you serve a object and you make it into Avodah Zarah, usually what happens is it's asur b'hana. You're not allowed to benefit from it because you made it into an Avodah Zarah. Here we have a special halach in our Mishnah. If you turn a mountain into an Avodah Zarah, you bow down to a mountain. Let's say Mount Rushmore, right? When Trump gets engraved and carved into Mount Rushmore, some people might bow down to it. So you turn it into an Avodah Zarah. So it's not asur b'hana, haharim v'hagvois, that you serve as Avodah Zarah and mutarin, umasha aleihen asurin. But whatever was beautifying your mountain, the Avodah Zarah, whatever's on it, trees, we'll see in a moment. Yeah, trees included. That's a very good question. But here we're talking about gold, silver. You're beautifying whatever you're beautifying because you consider the mountain as an Avodah Zarah. So whatever's on it is asur. The mountain itself is mutar. It's like a interesting halacha. The mountain itself does not have a shem of Avodah Zarah, at least according to Rashi, right? You can't make it into Avodah Zarah, right? It's not asur b'hana. But whatever you put onto the mountain is asur b'hana, because as far as they're concerned, the ornaments are concerned.
Not that whatever you add on after.
Whatever you add on, right? To beautify the Avodah Zarah, your mountain, right? That's asur. So the mountain itself is not, right?
Even though these things are mechuber, they're attached to the mountain, they're mechuber l'karka, so therefore what? They're still asur.
They're not mechuber l'karka, they're just on top of it. Let's say you beautify it with jewelry, like hang up stuff,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, all right.
So there.
Does that matter?
Okay, we'll talk about trees in a moment because you brought up trees. We'll see in a moment. But right now we're talking about the mountain versus whatever you put on top of it to beautify it. So the mountain itself is mutar. What do you mean the mountain itself is mutar? How can you benefit from a mountain? Take the stones, right? Take the stones of the mountain or plant stuff in the mountain, the produce of the mountain, right? That's, Rashi says, it's avonim or lizriya, which is all mechuber. That's part of the mountain itself, and it's mutar. But whatever you put on top of it, that's asur. What do we learn from? Shenamar. Because the Heilige Torah says, "Loisachmoid kesef v'zov aleihem," whatever is on top of the mountain, that you cannot take for yourself. That's asur b'hana. Rabbi Yosi Aglili brings another source. He agrees to the halacha that the mountain itself is mutar b'hana, and he has another source. How do we know that the mountain itself is mutar b'hana, but whatever is on it is asur? How do we know to differentiate like that? It says Rabbi Yosi Aglili, because it says Eloheihem al haharim, because it says
Not behaharim, al haharim.
al haharim means on top. Elohim, the gods that are on the mountain. V'lo yaharim Eloheihem, and not if the mountain itself is their god. It's their gods on top of the mountain, the Torah says, which indicates that if the mountain itself is their god, that's not an issue. And it also says Eloheihem v'alagvois, right? The word Elohim can also go v'alagvois, right? Eloheihem v'alagvois, only the gods that are on top of those smaller mountains. V'alagvois Eloheihem, but not if you make the small mountain into your god, that's not asur b'hana. So that's very interesting. That's what Rabbi Yosi Aglili says. So you have Machlekes Tanakama and Rabbi Yosi Aglili, which is unclear what exactly they're arguing in, other than the source. How do I know that the mountain itself does not become Avodah Zarah? Only what's on top of the mountain, that becomes Avodah Zarah. Tanakama says, because you learn from the Sachmet Kesef Zav Aleim, and basically has a different pasuk. Now the Gemara says like this. Basically, this Mamshech, he says, once we have established that anything that's karka or mechuber lekarka, that's ground or attached to the ground, does not become Avodah Zarah. So now to your question, what happens to an asherah tree? An asherah tree is an eitz. An eitz is mechuber lekarka, and yet we know that an asherah tree is Avodah Zarah, right? You're not allowed to have enough from an asherah tree. It's mechuber lekarka, right? That's the kasha. So says Rabbi Yosi Aglili, I'll tell you why an asherah tree is different. You know why? Mepnei sheyesh ba tfisas yedei adam. Because in a asherah tree, there's human involvement. What's the human involvement? That a person planted this tree for the purpose of it becoming a god, of it being its god. That's what a asherah tree is. So once the person involved himself and planted it l'shem avodas kechavim, that's why it's aser. V'chas sheyesh b'tfisas adam aser, that's aser b'hana.
What is considered attached to the ground?
Oh, attached to the ground is pashtus if it nourishes from the ground. It has to stay in the ground in order for it to grow and be alive. So whatever has tfisas yedei adam, pasha pshat means that it was a human involvement, a person was involved in attaching it to the ground, l'shem avodah zarah, that's when it is aser. That's why a shiur tree is different. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, Ani oiven v'odun lefanecha. Rabbi Akiva said to Rabbi Yossi Aglili that I'm going to explain your words. I'm going to explain what you mean. Yeah? Why does he have to explain it? I mean, Rabbi Yossi Aglili explained himself very well. So why does Rabbi Akiva come in and has to explain it? And the answer is because there is a big kasha. What's the big kasha? Because the Torah says, "V'sachas kol eitz ranan." So why don't we darshan from the word "sachas kol eitz ranan" that only whatever's under the tree is aser, right? But the tree itself, the tree itself is not aser. So says Rabbi Akiva, Kol mokem shatamoitza har gavoya v'giva nisa v'etz ranan da sheyesh sham avodas kechavim. Yeah, it means that whatever is under an eitz or whatever is around in the surrounding area, you should know you have to search that area for avodah zarah to be mevayer it. But you cannot learn from these words that the eitz does not become aser. Can't learn from these words the eitz doesn't become aser. That's why basically is the reason that it becomes aser mipnei sheyesh ba tfisas yedei adam. Okay, that's why he's not going l'chayra against the pasuk. That's what Rabbi Akiva is saying. L'chayra, there's a pasuk that says only tachas kol eitz ranon, but not eitz itself. It says no, it doesn't mean eitz itself is not aser. It just means that usually around eitzim you have avodah zarah, so make sure to check whether there's avodah zarah around eitzim. Okay, a couple of questions over here. First of all, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Who was older, Rabbi Akiva or Rabbi Yossi Aglili? From this Mishnah, Tosfos wants to be medayik. That one was older than the other. One was the Rebbe and one was the Talmud. What would you say based on this conversation? Rabbi Yossi Aglili says a halacha. Rabbi Akiva says, let me explain what you mean. Let me answer what might be difficult on what you're saying. A kasha that might be difficult on what you're saying. So in this conversation, who's the Rebbe, who's the Talmud? What would you say?
It sounds like Rabbi Yossi Aglili is the Rabbi, and Rabbi Akiva is the Talmud.
Says Tosfos l'chayra mashma mehacha. Rabbi Yossi Aglili hayazakin Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yossi Aglili was older. That's what Rabbi Akiva says. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, like I said respectfully, let me explain what you're saying. Yeah, like he gave him deference.
Isn't it usually the Rebbeim saying, let me explain what you mean to say?
Yeah, no, only now, because the Rebbeim want to make you feel good. Okay. But in the olden days, the Rebbeim were pretty honest. Yeah, very good. Yeah. You must have good Rebbeim. But anyway, point is that in this Mishnah, Tosfos wants to be medayik, the opposite. That from the fact that Akiva says, let me explain your words. So if you're explaining his words, that means that he was the Rebbe and the Talmud is trying to explain and understand it, right?
Also,
oivin va'odin lefanecha.
Also the Talmud today say, don't say, I will explain it. I say, I don't understand it.
Yes, it's a different world today.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an honest statement.
Right.
It's a very honest statement. That would how violent.
The Talmud say, I don't understand it. When I used to learn with my Rebbe, Naftali Stern, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, so I used to ask him questions all the time. And at some point he turned to me and he says, Yoel, are you trying to ask or are you trying to understand? I always tried to stump him. So he's like, you're trying to ask, you're trying to understand. So that's for sure not what Rabbi Akiva was doing. Rabbi Akiva was trying to explain what his Rebbe was saying. So Tosfos mashma from here, Rabbi Yossi Aglili was the Zaken. Tosfos has an issue with this. Because Tosfos says, actually, if you look in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, the Haggadah, it has Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Who does it mention first? Rabbi Akiva.
Right.
And not just that, Tosfos brings many Makaros, many Gemaras, where you see that Rabbi Akiva was actually older. Rabbi Akiva was older. So Tosfos says, actually Rabbi Akiva was older, Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe. Rabbi Yossi Aglili was a Talmud Chaver. Talmud Chaver deserves respect. So even though Rabbi Kiva was the Rebbe, if Rabbi Yosef Glili was a Talmud Chaver, Rabbi Kiva wanted to speak to him with respect and with deference, right? We have a similar Tosfos in Baba Basra. We had and not just that, it's a Gemara Sanhedrin. We had Rav Kahana and Rav. So the Gemara Sanhedrin says, Tosfos brings in Baba Basra, that Rav was the Rebbe, but Rav Kahana was a Talmud Chaver. And that's why many times when Rav is shasik, Rav Kahana asks him the question, Rav doesn't respond, and you can't conclude from that shtika, that he was, from there you see shtika kahida, right? Because Rav didn't just ignore him. You could.
You could, yeah.
Yeah, because as opposed to Rabbi and Abaye, when Rabbi was quiet and Abaye asked the question, you can't say shtika kahida, Rabbi agreed, because Abaye was really a Talmud and Rabbi just ignored him. As opposed to a Talmud Chaver, if the Rebbe is quiet and the Talmud is in a level of Talmud Chaver, so the Rebbe is quiet, that means the Rebbe does agree with him. That's an interesting concept. But over here, Tosfos wants to say Rabbi Yosef Glili was a Talmud Chaver of Rabbi Akiva. So it wasn't that Rabbi Akiva was a Talmud of Rabbi Yosef Glili, but Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe of Rabbi Yosef Glili, and yet he spoke to him with respect. Okay.
Now the title Chaver is a very special title anyway.
Which means a friend, like a
no.
contemporary,
No. It means a lot more than that.
attached.
Somebody. One second.
We had that, yeah.
If somebody is zoicha to be called a chaver,
Yeah.
it means that they are holding on a very high darga of ruchnius.
Ah, okay.
A talmud chaver, in order to be one of the simanim of a chaver,
Yeah.
is that they eat chulin b'tahara.
Okay. Yeah. Chulun
Just
b'tahara.
Like just like the kohanim.
If they die,
They're not necessarily kohanim. There could be, from any shevet, but they treat chulin as if it were kodshim
Yeah.
or truma.
One more thing, if I may. Tosfos over here makes an interesting ha'ara. Tosfos says, how were you allowed to build the Beis Hamikdash in Har HaMoriah? When Klal Yisrael came into Eretz Yisrael, what did Moshe Rabbeinu tell them? He says, Kol mokim, what's Rabbi Kiva's lashon over here? Kol mokim she'ata moitza har gevoya, da sheyesh sham avodas kechavim. That if you find a mountain in Eretz Yisrael, any mountain, you should know there's avodas kechavim there. So asks Tosfos, B'Yerushalmi, Parach Yerushalmi, Parach me Beis HaBechira, Beis Hamikdash. How are you allowed to build a Beis Hamikdash on Har HaMoriah if Rabbi Kiva says that any Har is biyadua that there was avodas kechavim there?
Isn't that the highest point in the Eretz Yisrael is Har HaMoriah?
Correct. So Har Gevoya. Kol
second.
Mokshta Moitza Har Gevoya. Yeah.
But they said that it was not the highest mountain.
What is that?
One of the reasons it was zoicha was because it was not the highest mountain,
Correct.
right?
No, that's Har Sinai. Are you still going to Har HaMoriah or Har Sinai? Har
You're
Sinai.
right. I sit corrected. You're
Okay,
right.
okay.
It is
All
Har
right.
Sinai.
Yeah.
Not-
Actually, Moriah. Yeah. Har Sinai.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good.
Tosfos
Thank you. Go ahead.
Tosfos answers that. Tosfos answered because it was Alpi Novi. There was a prophet that prophesied and said that Pashas, it means that a Novi said there was never Avodah Zarah done on that mountain. That's why you could rely on the Novi and build the Beis Hamikdash over there. But the Heilige Chasam Sofer, this is a very interesting history about Har HaMoriah. The Heilige Chasam Sofer in Shulchan Aruch brings from Ibn Nosson Adler, his Rebbe, that brings a medrash, in Medrash Tanchuma. I just looked it up. It says that Har HaMoriah had a very interesting history. It says, Vayar Samoka Meirachaik. It says, what does it mean, Meirachaik? It says, Melamed Shebatchilo Yimokam Omek. That Har HaMoriah was actually a valley. It wasn't a mountain at all. But once HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to be Mashra Shechina on Har HaMoriah and build the Beis Hamikdash there, so the Har, I guess the valley really said, it's not the way of a melech to dwell and rest in a valley. It has to be Mokum Gavoya, it has to be a high place, it has to be a mountain. So right away, Niskaptsu Aharim, the surrounding mountains gathered together, and they formed a mountain, which was Har HaMoriah for the Makam HaShechina. That's what's called Moriah, the Medrash says. Why? Because Moriah is Moshe Yira. Shemiyirosei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu nasahar. It was in awe that Hashem chose that spot for Hashras HaShechina, that the nearby mountains gathered together and built mountains. So that's why Chasam Sofer says that up to Avram Avinu, you could be sure they didn't serve Avodah Zarah over there. Why not?
It wasn't a mountain.
Because it wasn't a mountain, it was a valley. Once Avram Avinu came with Yitzchak, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, this is going to be the mountain that I'm going to build the Beis HaMikdash on. So maybe from that time until the Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, maybe from that time they served Avodah Zarah, right? Says the Chasam Sofer, no. Because once Avram Avinu was Mekadesh the mountain, and Hashem said, this is going to be the mountain where I want to rest my Shechina on, now belongs to Avram Avinu, it's dedicated for the use of Hashem. And we saw yesterday, I can't take your chayfetz and make it into Avodah Zarah, right? I can't do that. So Chasam Sofer says, so this way we have a teretz. Up until Avram Avinu, it wasn't even a mountain, it was a valley, right? So for sure they didn't do Avodah Zarah. Once Avram Avinu came and it became a mountain, now it belongs to Avram Avinu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it, he designated it to Avram Avinu to build the Beis HaMikdash. His children built the Beis HaMikdash, and now it doesn't belong to the Goyim. They can't turn it into Avodah Zarah anymore.
And it's very interesting that now, until we're Zoicha to be able to build a Beis HaMikdash in its proper place, the Muslims are guarding the Makom for us. They're not over the Avodah Zarah. They're not us. But there's no Avodah Zarah in that location.
Right, not just that, because they can't make it, it's ours.
Right.
Okay, let's go. Rabbi Yoel asks the Gemara, the two first opinions in the Mishnah, right? They both agree that the mountains themselves are not Avodah Zarah. You can't turn the mountains itself into Avodah Zarah, right? But they have two different psukim, two different sources, right? Tanakama says from one pasuk, and it basically has another pasuk. The Gemara says, bottom line is the same. So they have two different makairos, right? What's the chiluk between Rabbi Yoel and Tanakama and Halacha? Omer Rabbi Chama, Omer Shlokish, Tzofei Har Kahar Ikebenayu. Difference is whether it's Tzofei Har Kahar or not. What if you cover over the mountain? You literally cover it. It's not just you adorn it with Dvarim Tlushim, but you literally, gold plate the mountain or silver plate the mountain. What would the gold plated stuff on the mountain be like? It would be like the mountain, and it doesn't have a din of Avodah Zarah, or it'd be considered like Tlushim, and it does have a din of Avodah Zarah. So
like
the Gemara
you said
says
before, it's added on top, so it's right.
but it's not just added, and it's its own jewelry, piece of jewelry that they added that can be taken off,
Right.
but they plated it. So now the shaila is the plating on the mountain considered like the mountain, and it doesn't become Avodah Zarah, or is it separate? Says the Gemara, Ikebenayu, Tzifar Kahar Ikebenayu. Tanakama Sovar, Tanakama says, Tzipoy Har, Einoi Kahar. That whatever is used to plate the mountain, to cover the mountain, is not like the mountain, and it would be usr. The mountain itself is not usr, but whatever you use to plate over, to cover over the mountain, that would be usr. And Mitzvah, Rabbi Yoel Gold, Tzipoy Kahar. No, once you plate it, it's attached to the mountain, it's like the mountain itself, and it doesn't become usr. No, that's not the machlokes. Oh, we're turning the page. Mem Hayim at Beis right now. Yeah, machlokes in the psukim. You want to know how?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So Rashi explains. Rashi says, Tanakama says that whatever you plate the mountain, it's osir. It's not osir. It's not like the mountain, sorry, and it's osir. Because it says, Lesach moed kesef aleihem. Aleim sounds like kol sha'aleim. Whatever is on the mountain is osir. It doesn't matter if it's jewelry that's hung on the mountain or it's gold that's plating the mountain. It doesn't matter. Aleim is mashma, whatever is on the mountain itself. And that's why whatever you plate the mountain, whatever you cover it over with, will not be like the mountain itself. It's asr b'hana. And Rabbi Yossi says, no, it's bottle to the mountain. It is bottle to the mountain. Why?
So therefore
because,
So therefore it's not usher.
And therefore it's not
If it's
asr.
right.
And he wants to know, Chaim wants to know, how do you see that from the pasuk? Because the pasuk says, Elohim al haharim. The gods have to be on top of the mountain, on the mountain itself. But if you're plating the mountain, then that would be batal agabe har.
Why would you have a problem then if you just put the jewelry on?
Because that's called al haharim. It's on the mountain. On the mountain sounds like it's separate, but it's resting on the mountain, but it's not covering and plating the mountain itself. Make sense?
What if it was like hanging on trees?
Huh?
If it's hanging on trees, is that because they're like almost as if they're attached to the trees, and the trees are attached
Ah,
to
I think hanging on trees is not like. I think it would be like hanging on like it's just jewelry hanging on a mountain. I think
what's the jewelry just in the sitting.
whatever you
like,
adorn the
with
mountain with.
diamonds.
Yeah, it becomes all usher. So now the Gemara says there's another pshat. Oh, Rav Sheishis Amad Kul Alma Tzipar Eina Kahar. V'hacha be'ilan shenatoy or lebasoif avodah kemeflagi. It's a different machlokes. What happens if a guy planted a tree just because he wanted fruits, not l'shem avodah zarah? Ulebasoif avodah, and later on they decided to serve it. That's the machlokes. Hacha be'ilan shenatoy avodah kemeflagi. Tana kamasover
Wait,
ilan.
so who decided? The guy who planted it changed his mind, or other people came and decided?
Oh, so you're saying it makes a difference who did it?
I'm asking. I don't know.
No
whether-
difference. No difference.
Okay.
Any tree that was there before they turned the mountain into an Avodah Zarah, now the shaila is that tree, is that bechlal the mechuber lekarka that becomes aser or not? Tana kamasavar ilan shenatoy ulebesoif avodoi mutter. If it was planted before it became Avodah Zarah, and only after it took root, that's when you started serving the you started serving it into Avodah Zarah, then it's mutter. Why? Because you can't consider it as tfisas yedei adam. It's like a higher.
People helping you.
Yeah, people's involvement. When we say that the Asherah tree is usher because it had human involvement, it had human involvement from the very beginning. From when you planted it, planted it l'shem avodah zarah. But if you took a tree, right, and you planted it stam because you wanted fruits, and only afterwards you decided to serve it, that's like a mountain. Mountain was there before, and you come along and you want to serve the mountain as avodah zarah. That wouldn't work. So that's what Tanakama holds. Elon shenatoy, anyone who plants a tree, he didn't want to use it as avodah zarah b'shas. He planted it. He planted a tree for the produce, and later on, once it took root, he decides to serve it. That's like deciding to serve a mountain.
Can two partners
It's already there.
who own something, can one person make it a Avodah Zarah and the other person?
So that would depend how you look at partnership. If you look at partnership, we all have 100%,
Right.
then you can't, because it's Eino Davaisa Davashe Eino Shaloi. I can't aser something that belongs to another person. But if it's 50-50, my 50, I could aser. It's like owning an animal. The Gemara Kedusha says, two shutfan own an animal, right? Can one shutf be makdish the behema? Yeah, it's...
No.
No, actually, the Gemara says you could. His magdish is 50%, and not just that. Now the whole behema becomes kaddish because kedusha pashta me'alev. The whole sugya.
In other words,
the
one
kedusha is
of them
mispashit.
decides to be makdish.
His chelik.
The left half of the animal.
Yeah, the left.
right hand,
Whatever.
right.
I don't know how you
Right.
decide which one is which, but
That sounds a bit crazy.
Of course, it is crazy.
huh?
That's a practical.
I believe the Gemara kedusha Davav Dav Zayin. We're talking the whole sugya.
I don't think
That if somebody
Because it
two should, he wants to know. Is Chaim? Is it bring up an interesting
They
shaila?
don't split the half. They don't split half of the tree.
No, I know. I'm
They
just.
own the tree together, and then they say whatever quotas. What happens?
But how do you define
No,
the
I-
partnership?
I-
You
I was
define it
being-
50-50 or 100-100? How do you
I
define
was
it?
exaggerating. I was exaggerating.
You cut half the tree off.
No, we do it 50-50.
Right, that's a shaila.
We do it 50-50
Let's just
of
say
the-
there's
of
100
the
apples
proceeds.
every year. This guy takes 50. And
I
this
know,
guy
but
takes 50.
okay, it was a different conversation for a different
No,
time.
no, that wasn't right.
Cut it off.
We're not talking about shutfin over here. You want to bring in shutfin, right?
You won't
I'm
know
talking
how
about the
to do
Avodah
that.
Zarah. And
You're talking about a case when two shutfim have a tree, and one shutf wants to plant it l'shem avodah zarah, and the other says no. That's what? That's what you're asking. Yeah. I think it's a little off topic, but we can talk about it. Anyway, the point is over here. You have a tree, and it was not. Yeah, one person owns the tree for this sugya, and the guy planted it in the beginning. He doesn't want to make it a avodah zarah. Afterwards, he decides, it took root already. Now I'm going to turn it to avodah zarah. Then it's already part of it's part of the mountain. It's like already you have like something which is mechuber lekarka. You can't turn it into avodah zarah. That's what Tanakama holds. Rabbi Yoel Gold savar. No. Even if when you planted it, you didn't mean to turn it to avodah zarah. It took root, and only afterward did you decide to make it into avodah zarah. It's aser b'hana. You know why? Because that's still called tfisas yedei adam. By Asherah tree, we said, why is Asherah tree aser? Because it had human involvement. Here, it's also considered human involvement since you were the one who planted it and you turned it into avodah zarah. Even if you turned it into avodah zarah later, it's still aser b'hana. Says the Gemara, Mimai, how do you know that that's Rabbi Yoel Gold's opinion? Mediktani Seifa, because in the Seifa the Mishnah says, Neima Sheira Asura. Why is not shiur a tree aser? Because it had human involvement. Anytime there's a human involvement in mechober lekarka, then it's aser. What's v'chol? The lashon of the Mishnah is v'chol. Everything. What is everything? Lav lasuye. From that word of the Mishnah, you see that Rabbi Yoel Gold holds is aser b'hano. That's the raya from the Mishnah. The Rabbi Yoel Gold is the one who says from the word v'chol. Everything, which means everything that has tfisi de adam, everything includes even a tree that you first planted shaloi l'shem avodah zarah, and then afterward you decided to make it into avodah zarah. Says the Gemara now, there's another Tana who agrees with this stringency, with this chamer de geshita of Rabbi Yoel Gold. V'af Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Sovar, ilon shenatol b'seif avodah aser. Even Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda also holds like Rabbi Yoel Gold that a tree that you planted first shaloi l'shem avodah zarah, and then it took root, and then you decided to treat it, to serve it as avodah zarah. He also holds it's also the Tani. We learned the Brisa. Where do we see Rabbi Yehuda holds like that? Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Oimer, Metoich Shenemar. Since it says in the pasuk, Elohayim al Harim, it says in the Torah, the gods on the mountain, V'lo Yaharim Elohayim, and we learn from that not of the mountain itself as a god, or Elohayim al Hagvois, or the smaller mountains, whatever gods they have on top of the smaller mountains, V'lo Yagvois Elohayim, but not the smaller mountain itself as a god. So Shamei Ani, maybe from that drasha, just like you darshan those words, be consistent in your drasha and say also, V'sachas kol eitz ranan, anything that's under the tree, in other words, it's buried under the tree, maybe that's Elohayim. That's a god. That has a din of avodah zarah. V'lo eitz ranan Elohayim, but not if the tree itself is an avodah zarah. So memelo, you should darshan from the pasuk the same way you darshan that mountains cannot become avodah zarah. Darshan also that the tree cannot become avodah zarah because of a tachas kol eitz, only whatever is buried underneath, but the eitz itself cannot become avodah zarah. So be consistent in the way you darshan the pasuk and say that eitzim are not avodah zarah either.
Just asked that question, right?
Talmud loymar.
No, we just said because we were helping. Why are we trying to go for away from
This is another brisa. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. He has a different logic. Okay, very good. So Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says Talmud loymar v'asheireyem tisrafun be'esh. It says in the Torah that you have to burn the trees. So if trees are not becoming avodah zarah, right? So why would you burn it? Must be that the trees do become avodah zarah because there's another pasuk that says v'ashereim tisrafun be'esh. Elo tachas kol eitz ranon normally. So if the eitz itself becomes avodah zarah, that's why you have to burn it. So why would the Torah mislead us and say tachas kol eitz ranon, only what's buried under the tree? I mean, if the tree itself becomes avodah zarah as well, you have to burn it. So why do you say tachas kol eitz? Only what's buried underneath. That's like Rabbi Akiva explained. Because Rabbi Akiva said in our Mishnah, I'll explain it. Right? When Moshe Rabbeinu said to Klal Yisrael, Tachas kol eitz ranon, what he meant was, Kol mokom shatamoitza har gavoya v'giva nisav eitz ranon, da sheyeshem b'eretz kechavim. He didn't mean to say that the eitz itself is not avodah zarah. Avad the eitz itself is avodah zarah because it says v'ashireim tisrafun be'esh. It says that asher tree you have to burn. So it must be eitzim avodah zarah. So why is it tachas kol eitz, which would indicate that it's not? It's only whatever's buried underneath. The eitz itself doesn't? Nah, that's not what it means. It just means that always search under the trees because that's where they hide their avodah zarahs. Moshe Rabbeinu is just giving good advice. Avada the eitz itself is avodah zarah. That's why it says you have to burn it. Why does it tachas kol eitz? Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, wink, wink. Always check under the tree. That's where they're hiding out their avodah zarah. So that's why it says tachas kol eitz. So the Gemara says, so what do you see from here?
Like little gnomes, there's these hobbitures.
They used to hide it over there. Like what?
Like there's this tree that's right in Yehuda that has a lot of small little people, toy figures, and
They could be anything.
I'm not sure what tree you're saying, but yeah,
He's talking about the kinds of things that they might hide
Well,
at
you
the.
know halacha regarding something like a cross, where the shape is synonymous with the idol, but let's say someone made it, right, and didn't have intention for it to be an idol.
right.
Did we talk about
But
that yesterday or the
everyone
day
knows
before?
that if you look at a
Yeah, we
cross,
talked about it day before our
We spoke about this a couple days ago.
No, Eitan.
Yeah.
So what's it, if nobody, no, they're just trying to.
Depends. No.
Eitan, if first of all, it's never served as a cross. Nobody served it as a cross. It's not any chayfetz, any object is only if you serve it, if you make it into an avodah zarah. if you have, I mean, the Red Cross also has like a cross,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's not, a
It's
plus
just a
sign is also a cross.
Right, right.
A T, the letter T. Okay, we do it a little
That's
bit
why.
like this,
That's
but
why.
yeah. But usually a cross is only if any item, it's only osir b'anom Torah if that item was used as an avodah zarah.
So it's
Okay.
100% mutter to wear a cross, basically.
Minat Torah, there's no problem. There might be an issue that it's marasayin, it's chashad, that we had a whole sugya that people might, when they look at you, they might say, oh, this guy is starting to serve a zarah. I mean, like that might be an issue. But other than that, Minat Torah, it's only if it was actually served as a avodah zarah. Okay, the Gemara says the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan who hold that Elon that you planted in the beginning, not l'shem avodah zarah, and afterwards you started serving as an avodah zarah, they hold it's mutter. So hay v'asherei tisrim be'esh my avdilei. So if it's mutter, so when is our sheirut? When do you have to burn our sheirut tree? Says the Gemara, Pashut mi boile le'ilan shenatam etchila lekach. Right? Rabbanan will agree that a tree that you planted to begin with to serve as avodah zarah, that avad you have to burn. That's what the Torah is saying. V'asherei tisrim from the eish. But Rabbi Yehuda says no. He takes it a step further with Rabbi Yossi Glili. Even a tree that you planted shaloi l'shem avodah, but then you decided to serve it as avodah zarah, that also you have to burn. Rabbi Yehuda, how does he know to be machmer and say the pasuk of Asher Tisrim Be'esh is referring to even a tree that you planted at the beginning, not to avodah zarah, and now you're serving it as avodah zarah? Maybe it's only for a tree that you're not to metchil lekach. Says the Gemara Chanami. Truth is, you're right. Rabbi Yehuda only uses the pasuk Asher Tisrim Be'esh to teach you an Elon that was to begin with planted as avodah zarah. Ela Elon shenatoyla b'sev avodah minoleh. So how does he know an Elon that you planted not l'shem avodah zarah and then you decided to serve it? How does he know that that also needs to be burnt? Nafkalei v'asharein tagadeyon. He learns it from a different pasuk. It's another pasuk. It's tagadeyon. What's tagadeyon mean? Tagadeyon means to chop it off. Yeah, it means to chop it off. Ezo eitz shegidui aser v'ikray mutter. What kind of tree does the Torah say to chop off but not to burn? The kind of tree that you have to chop off is a tree that when you planted it, it was not planted l'shem avodah zarah. So the roots are not avodah zarah. Because when you planted it was not avodah zarah. Only when it started growing, you decided, oh, I'm going to turn it into avodah zarah. So only the upper half of the tree, when you decided to serve it, whatever grew afterwards, that becomes avodah zarah. So that you have to chop off.
How do you determine that? Where on the tree? How do you determine? Anything above the ground? What do you
Okay, to be machmer, if you don't know, I guess.
Yeah, but right. Okay.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, machmer, you have to. So the Gemara says, "If I that way,
the upper half.
What is
It's
the
not like
fruit?
this tree's ready,
Like
made.
bigger.
And then
Depends at what point, what stage in the process of the growth process of the tree.
That was my question. That was
The
exactly
roots
my
go
question.
bigger also.
I know,
Roots.
but here's the
you make
vart.
a mark on the bottom.
No,
of
here's the vart. The vart is whatever was already mechuber lakarka, you cannot turn into avodah zarah.
What if
Okay,
the roots?
only something that's not mechuber lakarka at the time you make it into avodah zarah. Oh, but you're asking, it's always mechuber lakarka.
Yeah, because the roots themselves, but if you look at the sidewalks, this is where I get patience. The sidewalks, they gradually increase as the roots grow more
Yes,
and more.
yes.
Sidewalks get more and more dangerous.
Yes,
That's where.
Because the roots themselves, and that's what causes a lot of problems.
yes.
And we have this city also quote about where you have a mixture with the two different climate type situation, where the roots grow into the other.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They have that too because the roots they grow in
They are growing as well. You're saying.
as well as the upper.
That's what you're saying. Very interesting. The roots are constantly expanding. They're growing on
Basically
the.
the middle part.
So in Mela, whatever grows after you turned it into an avodah zarah, even from the roots should be
You make a
awesome.
mark on the bottom of the tree. The mark won't grow up as the tree gets bigger.
Yeah.
Stay there.
No, because
How do you do? How do you determine that?
These are good questions.
Determine the sky blue. I mean, it's
No. How do you determine where to put the mark?
on the bottom.
By the ground.
On the bottom of the tree.
Yeah, by the ground.
Not on the ground, but on the bottom. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, where? Where on the trunk?
Said by the ground. By the ground.
That's on the
That's what he said.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Very interesting. Yeah. I just don't understand that let's say the tree is this high. Yeah, and I see they're talking about this. Let's say the tree is this high. Yeah, and at this point, you decided to turn it to Avodah Zarah. So now whatever is here, from here to the bottom, is not Avodah Zarah because that was already here.
That was my
beforehand.
This goof is my question.
Now
Okay,
when
fine.
you bow down, what exactly you're turning into Avodah Zarah? Whatever hasn't grown is not even ba'olam yet.
Yeah, you're turning
Right.
nothing into Avodah Zarah.
So you turn nothing into Avodah Zarah.
That's
So
the
why is the
question.
growth? Oh, that's your kash also?
I mean, that's part of it, no? Sure, it's part of like a
Yeah,
more.
good.
Don't trees
like
get
it's-
wider? Trees get wider.
Oh, that's Dr. Square. Like the roots expand.
The actual trunk.
The actual trunk gets wider.
So
Oh
the trunk
boy,
itself is
this is a very problematic. This is a very problematic Gemara over
My
here.
grandfather has this palm tree that's 100 years old. When it was younger, it must have been like this big.
And now it's
not-
thick.
Like 3 people, like 4 people could have
Oh wow. Okay. These are all geschmack kashas. I don't have clarity in this. I'm sorry, but these are good kashas. Says the Gemara, "V'ashereim tisifon be'eish kanasav la Talmuda." What do you mean? The Gemara just said that on these trees it says "V'ashereim tisifon be'eish." Yeah. So how could you learn from Ashereim to Gadeyon? So the Gemara says no. Ilulay namer ka'amar. It means if it wouldn't have said it, that's what I would have learned. Ilulay namer tisifon be'eish. If it wouldn't have said in the Torah that you should burn the trees, or you see omer. Vasharim to Gadeyan, B'ilan Shenatoy Mitchila Lakach. Then I would have used the pasuk Vasharim to Gadeyan for trees that were planted Mitchila Avodah Zarah. But Hashtag Siv Vasharim Tisfim Be'esh. Once I have the pasuk that says you have to burn the trees, Iyater Le Vasharim to Gadeyan. Now I have an extra pasuk Vasharim to Gadeyan. So Lalam et Ilan Shenatoy B'Seiv Avadai. So now we have this extra pasuk. So Vasharim to Gadeyan is going on a tree that you first planted Shaloi L'Shem Avodah Zarah, and then you decided to use it as Avodah Zarah. Then you have to chop off the upper half. Hashem Tisfim Be'esh, you have to burn it completely. That's referring to a tree that from the beginning you planted it L'Shem Avodah Zarah. So the two psukim are talking about two different kinds of trees. One is you planted it L'Chil L'Shem Avodah Zarah, you have to burn. And one is you planted it Shaloi L'Shem Avodah Zarah, and then it grew. Then you chop off the upper half, which grew afterwards. The Rabbanan, what are the Rabbanan going to do? How are they going to know that you have to uproot Avodah Zarah? I'm sorry. You have Rabbanon. Says the Gemara of Rabbanon. Hi Vashirim Tegadein my Avdilay. According to the Rabbanon that allow you to keep the whole tree, even if you started serving it after you planted it, it's mutter. So what's Vashirim Tegadein going on? According to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Vashirim Tegadein is going on a tree that you planted in the beginning. Shaloi L'Shem Avodah Zarah. Then you started serving it. That you have to chop off the upper half. But according to the Rabbanon that it's mutter. So what do you have to chop off? What kind of tree?
What if you just serve that part?
You have to chop off the part that you serve. That's Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbanan say you don't have that. If once you plant it, mitchila shaloi l'shem avodah zarah, the whole tree is okay. So what's the pasuk Ashereim Tegadein going on? Look at the Shuvah Levi. Don't Rabbi Shuvah Levi. Gidu avodas kachavim koyin l'kibush Eretz Yisrael. Kibush Eretz Yisrael koyin l'bir Eretz kachavim. Ah, very interesting. The Tanur of Yosef. This is very interesting halacha. When they came into Eretz Yisrael, the first thing they had to do was chop off the trees that were used for Avodas Kachavim, right? Now, they weren't commanded, I guess they knew, they weren't commanded yet to uproot it lagamre and to burn it. Why? First, just chop it off, right? And wait till you conquer all of Eretz Yisrael. As you overtake Eretz Yisrael one by one, one city at a time, you enter that city, just make sure to chop off the trees.
At ground
So,
level?
To make sure that you know these are Avodah Zarah
just
trees,
the
you're not going to
branches,
serve it.
just
Nobody's
the
going to serve
branches
it.
or at ground level?
Nobody's going to use it.
Everything after you conquer everything, because then you lose wood, because the stuff that you conquered before. No, isn't that?
No, because we don't want anybody to. You want to make sure you know which ones are Avodah Zarah trees, so you just chop it off first.
You don't want to delay.
You don't delay it, right? And then you kovish Eretz Yisrael. Then you finish conquering Eretz Yisrael. Then you go back to those trees. You uproot it and then you burn it. So there's a process. Rabbi Shtieble says, "Gidu avodas kachavim koydnu l'kibush Eretz Yisrael. Kibush Eretz Yisrael koydnu l'Eretz kachavim." The Tanur of Yosef, it's stated in the Torah, "When it tats them mizbechosam." Right? You should smash them mizbechos v'hanach and leave their broken pieces. Leave them, and you don't have to get rid of them and burn them. V'shibartam is matzevoisam. Break their matzevos v'hanach. Leave it. Leave the broken pieces. You don't have to be mevaret min ha'olam. Asks the Gemara, "Hanach salkadaitich." You just leave it like that. Sreifa boy, you have to burn it. Ravuna said, "No, redoif. First, make sure you chase the goyim out of Eretz Yisrael, right? And then once you chase them out, achakach sreiv, go back to those broken pieces and then you burn it." So there's a step. There's a step-by-step process. Rabbi Yosef bar Yudai Svar Minole. Rabbi Yosef bar Yudai who learns from Ashereim Tegadeyun that Elon shenatoi ol b'seif avodoi is aser. How would he know this halacha? That first be goideya and then burn it after kibush. Says the Gemara nafkele abe to abdon. He learns it from the pasuk abe to abdon, double lashon abed. First, I guess, first destroy the trees. That's a superficial destruction, which means only chop them, right?
That you're talking about just cut off the branches or down to the ground?
No, just cut it off the gadeya. The trunk, yeah. V'chakach ta'abden, and then destroy the goyim and make sure they make sure you get them out of Eretz Yisrael, and then sreif, and then you have sreifa. For Rabbanon, the Gemara says, don't we need the pasuk abed to abden for something else? That if you're oikav es kechavim, when you uproot of es kechavim, you have to mamish uproot it with all its roots. Abed to abdun, right? Even the shrushim under the ground can't leave anything. So that's what you need the pasuk for. So Gemara says, for Rabbanon, how does he basically read the whole? Know that? He learns it from Ebarat Meshemam ben Abaka Mahu. That what? Ebarat Meshemam means uproot it lagamre. Shemam entirely. Rabbanon, what are they going to do with that pasuk? Hahu lechanis la Shem. That pasuk is necessary to change the name of the Avodah Zarah. Yeah, wherever it was. Right. Change the name. The Tanya of Eliezer Omer, what? The Getchka. Oh, how do I know you have to uproot it from the roots? It says, I know that from Abata Abden. So the Gemara came out with what do I need from Abata Mashmam, a second pasuk? Lechanas Lashem, to change the name. Yochel Shvach. I would have thought maybe to change the name for the better. What do you mean? Really? To change the name of Avodah Zarah and give it even a better name? Any other name would suffice. It doesn't need to l'shvach nagdai. Talmud loymar shaketz teshaktzenu v'sayv tesavenu kicheirim hu. Yeah. Haketza the koinos abis galia, koinos abis karya, ein koil, ein koitz. In other words, these are, I guess, degrading names. If it had beautiful names, make sure you give it a degrading name. Change it to a degrading name. Last Gemara, Tanakama Rav Sheshis, Ha'oivdei kechavim, ha'oivdei mesaharim sagvois, hen mutarin, oivdein b'sayif. Yeah, this is interesting. Even though the harim and the gvois, we just said in the Mishnah, does not become Avodah Zarah, but if a guy serves the mountain as if the mountain's Avodah Zarah, even though the mountain itself cannot become Avodah Zarah, the guy who bows down to the mountain is treated like an Avodah Zarah. He gets killed by sword. Even though, which is a big chiddush, right? The big chiddush. So the way to understand it is that really the mountain is Avodah Zarah. It's Gzeirus HaKosav, it's not. It's like the Torah made Gzeirus HaKosav, it's not Avodah Zarah.
He doesn't own it, that's why.
For whatever reason, because we learned from Psukim, right? We had the Psukim of the Mishnah, too, Rabbi Yosi Aglili and Tanakama. Whatever reason, it's Gzeirus HaKosav, the mountain doesn't become Avodah Zarah. But it's not to say that if somebody serves it, he's not Chayiv Sayiv. So if Sheshis comes to teach us, so hen mutarin, yeah, the mountains are mutar, it's not Avodah Zarah, but Avdein b'sayif. V'sazrom seirokas hen asurim, v'avdein b'sayif. And the Zroim and the Irokos are osir b'hana. It's like a tree which you planted metchila l'shem Avodah Zarah, which everybody holds is osir b'hana, v'avdein b'sayif. Omer lei the Omer Lachmani. Who is this Tana that learns like that? Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, the Omer Ilish not b'sayif. Oh, they're osir. Yeah, that's osir. Maybe it's an Elon that's notor metchil lekach versus leisal kodaitik. The ktani dum yedahar. Mahar shnotor metchil lekach. Afainami sheloi notor metchil lekach. Just like the har, the mountain was not Avodah Zarah to begin with, so to the Elon we're talking about, it was not Avodah Zarah to begin with. He just made it Avodah Zarah, and yet it's also like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda.